Had he been half as attentive during those last days of our marriage, our story might have ended very differently. Our love story began in the 10th grade, though I had been enamored with him since the 4th. By the time we married after our junior year in college, it felt as though we had already lived a lifetime together. 21 years into that marriage, our happily ever after came to an abrupt end. The divorce was tumultuous. It wasn't just my heartbreak and the kids that had to be managed, but his as well. He knew he was wholly responsible for destroying our family, yet he could never explain why. With no one else to blame and accountability not exactly in his wheelhouse, he lived in constant turmoil. His mother was enraged when she learned we had separated. She refused to believe me when I told her about her son's infidelity. I was content to let her believe whatever she wanted. She never asked him directly, and he never offered the truth. Eventually, I was vindicated, not when she learned the truth, but when she experienced it. I was surprised to see her at the game, even though it was her grandson's championship basketball game. She lived more than an hour away and hated driving at night. Yet, there she was. Despite her failing eyesight, she spotted us instantly in the crowd and stomped up the bleachers to confront me for keeping the kids away from her son. She yelled that I had no right to demonize him. If I had any feelings left after the year Quincy had put me through, I might have been mortified. Mabel was loud and inappropriate, but I made no attempt to interrupt her rant. I recognized a mother doing what she believed was right, protecting her precious son. Quincy had told her he was too upset to attend the game because of the separation and because he'd been left all alone. She had taken up the mantle and come in his place. Eventually, she settled down next to my daughter and we tried to get through the game in peace. At halftime, my daughter sent her father a few action shots of her brother, letting him know he was missing a great game. He responded, keeping up his victim act.
I wish I could have been there to see it.
His mother read the text, and that was more than she could stand. She left soon after, kissing her granddaughter on the cheek and ignoring me entirely.
"Tell your brother I'm proud of him,"
she said.
"and I'll call later to see how many points they win by."
I started to wish her a safe drive home. If I had, maybe she would have mentioned she wasn't going home. Maybe I could have saved her. It took her 20 minutes to reach the house. She was relieved to see all the lights on. At least she knew Quincy was home. She stepped out of the car, pulling her overnight bag behind her, knocked on the door, and without waiting for an answer, used her key to let herself in. Curled up on the sofa was the cutest little kid, and while she was trying to make sense of that, a strange woman, obviously the child's mother, peeked out from the kitchen, expecting to see Quincy. They both gasped. Punny recognized Mabel instantly from photos and launched into frantic explanations and attempted introductions. Mabel turned without a word, pulled her overnight bag behind her, and closed the front door. It was after midnight when my phone rang.
Lanai, have you spoken to my mother? She was here, but she left before I got home.
Quincy had been trying to reach her for hours after her surprise visit to the house. She hadn't responded to any of his calls, texts, or messages.
"Let me guess,"
I said.
Puni answered the door.
Silence.
"You realize she knows about your little fake family, right? And she still wants to blame me for your nonsense. There's no way she would call me. You're going to have to figure this one out on your own."
The next morning, Quincy was sitting in my kitchen. The kids had let him in.
"I guess you're saying I'm gonna help you whether I want to or not."
My mama is missing, and I bet you told her about me and Punny. You probably sent her to the house,
he said. Quincy was distraught, and though he was about to take it out on me, I took a slow sip of my Bloody Mary and stared him straight in the eye.
"This is your mess. If you didn't lie so much, she wouldn't have had to find out the way she did. Now get the hell out of my house. And take your little girlfriend with you when you go looking for your mama."
That night, just before midnight, my phone rang again. It was Mabel.
"Lanai,
Her voice was soft.
I'm sorry."
We spoke for less than 5 minutes. Everything that needed to be said between us already had been. The conversation she needed to have was with her cheating son. By then, the kids and I had outgrown life in Tanger. It didn't take them long to recover from the divorce. Both of them could drive, so they could see their father whenever they wanted. They had enviable social lives and a city full of cousins. They were well adjusted and ready for a little adventure. 2 years after the divorce, Quincy was mostly living his happily ever after with his new wife, Puni, and her son. That's why it confused and irritated me when he made such a big deal about our decision to move away. He leaned heavily on the shared parenthood routine as a reason to stay in constant contact. It had its conveniences. He did help make sure our son grew into the kind of man he himself had failed to be, and he was still handy around the house. But the kids would be leaving for college soon, and I wanted to start dating. That wasn't something I could ever do in this city. As our moving date approached, his calls became more frequent. If I'm being honest, I welcomed the connection. It was an ego boost. A strange kind of confidence that comes from knowing there's a safety net somewhere behind you. I had outgrown both the city and him, and yet I knew that if my plans didn't work out, they would both welcome me back. I'll never say I'm happy my marriage ended, but I certainly enjoyed parts of my newly unencumbered life. Reconnecting with friends, making new ones, traveling, day parties, exploring new things, no compromises, being responsible only for myself. It was a level of peace and happiness I never knew existed. And wow, did I deserve it. At first, it was just my son and me forging a new path. My daughter chose to stay behind with her father. She was his greatest advocate, begging me to give him another chance. It took a few months for her to accept that I was serious about moving on with my life, just as he was getting serious about his new family. When she was ready and on her own terms, she came home to me. My heart was full. Life was easy. Both kids found their rhythm in the new city. Their father stayed in touch, but he never ended a call without asking to speak to me. And even though they knew better, both kids always looked at me with hope that maybe this would be the conversation that put our family back together. Over time, those conversations became more elaborate. Quincy would propose plans to leave his wife and reunite our family. He rehearsed what he would say and how we would explain things to the kids. He talked about finding her a place to live, letting her keep the house, buying me a new one. I don't know why I let him keep talking. Maybe because I could see how miserable he was. Maybe because that version of him reminded me of our youth when we were building our future together. We used to have so much fun. He was like my best friend. But no, this was make-believe. He wasn't a friend to me, his wife, or even himself. Still, he did make me laugh. The biggest problem was the confusion it created for our adult children. When his father died, I told the kids I had no place at the funeral and they would need to attend without me. They refused.
Not without you.
So I went, prepared to sit quietly in the back beneath a large hat and veil. Instead, I was ushered to the front pew beside my ex-husband, our children seated on either side of us. And his wife? She was somewhere in the middle of the church, sitting beside co-workers. I felt an overwhelming wave of guilt. Had they mistaken me for the current wife, or was this orchestrated? I tried to slip away after the service, but Mabel insisted I stay to greet guests and attend the repast. If it hadn't been a funeral, I would have said my children looked happy. Quincy's family treated me as though nothing had changed, as though no time had passed. Given their grief, perhaps they needed that illusion. I stayed for them. Afterward, I pulled Quincy aside.
This has to stop,
I said.
Today shouldn't have happened like that. It was disrespectful to your wife and your marriage.
Quincy became serious. He swore he was beyond the planning stage, that he was ready to get his family back. When I returned home, I stopped answering his calls unless the kids were around. I rarely took the phone when they handed it to me. I had to find a way to break away. Eventually, months passed without us speaking. Unfortunately, he also began pulling away from the kids. He had promised our son a car, but never delivered. Then came more broken promises. I didn't intervene. I couldn't be the reason he maintained a relationship with his children. While figuring out how to buy my son a car myself, I reviewed all my accounts. I scraped together enough for the down payment and even had money left to send my daughter on spring break. I felt proud, resourceful, independent. I decided to treat myself, but I had already used the extra money on the kids. Then I had a brilliant idea, an old account I hadn't touched in years. After resetting forgotten passwords, I finally logged in. The balance read, $65,000. It was our old vacation fund, still a joint account. The last conversation I remembered about it was agreeing to close it since we wouldn't be taking family trips anymore. I called the bank to verify the funds, then I tested it. First, I withdrew $300 and waited a few days. Nothing. Then $2,000. Still nothing. 2 days later, I transferred the entire balance into my savings account. I bought my son his car. I bought my daughter her spring break tickets. Almost 2 months passed before Quincy realized. The phone calls came back to back. I answered none of them. The voicemails and texts were brutal. Then he started calling the kids again. They had no idea what was going on. They were just happy to hear from him. Eventually, he caught me on the phone.
Put my money back!
He yelled.
What money?
I asked calmly.
The money you promised we'd use to put our family back together? Oh,
I said facetiously.
you mean the money you promised our daughter for her trip to East Hampton?
He hung up in a rage. He called the bank to report theft. They reminded him that joint owners have equal rights to the account. He called my job, trying to get me fired. He tried to sue me. The case was dismissed. Eventually, the dust settled. Then one day, my phone rang from a number that looked vaguely familiar. It was Puni. She was crying. She called to thank me. Through tears, she admitted she had been wrong for her role in breaking up my marriage. Yet I had never blamed her. Now she was the one being lied to and cheated on. Quincy had been using his relationship with me and the kids as cover for an affair with yet another woman. All the while, he had been siphoning money from their household account. He had planned to leave her and take the money with him.
All this time I thought you were getting what you deserve.
She said.
I can't believe I fell for all of his lies about you. And now you really are getting what you are owed.
He would still leave, but he wouldn't leave with the money.
You know,
She said softly.
that money really belonged to you anyway. You're the one who had to leave your home.
As I hung up, I felt a tension in my shoulders relax. With the new bit of information I'd just received, I realized how damaged and unrepentant he was. But one thing was for certain. He was no longer my burden.